Good morning, everyone. I know Kim has asked us to be short and concise. The short I can do. I'm going to try to be as concise as possible. Please, next. Oops. The purpose of our group discussions was really to consult regarding the options for the 2035 neonatal mortality rate target within the context of linking to the Promise Renewed Under 5 mortality global target of 15. Also to the process for the maternal mortality rate target setting, which is currently ongoing. Felt that it was critical to get wide discussion on the level of ambition, and as well as the doability and the traction that we would be able to get. And we wanted to be sure that we understood that there were no decisions that have been taken and that we're welcoming open discussion and ideas. So the questions that were posed to the group were really around the targets, the principles, and what additional analyses to consider. With the targets, we really wanted to know whether we should have a universal target, i.e. something that was the same for all countries, whether it should be relative, a percentage, or absolute, a number, and what the level of the target ought to be. So we got consensus, really, that the target ought to be universal. The rationale behind it was that we should be bold, that we should engage the spirit of the global community. Regarding absolute versus relative, there was no consensus, but a strong tendency towards having a number, an absolute target, rather than a relative percentage. But for the high mortality countries, we are still leaning towards a relative goal. Around the level of the target, the first group really felt that the target of 5 seemed too ambitious and that we needed to consider results between 12 and 9 to be compared to the 10 and 7 that were being proposed. Group 2 felt that 10 was not ambitious enough, which would provide an annual rate of reduction of 3.2%, and that we needed to see the analysis of the target around 7. So just within the context, if we continue along our current trajectory, we will hit a neonatal mortality rate of 13 by 2035. With an annual rate of reduction of 3.2%, we'll hit the neonatal mortality target of 10. And with a 6% annual rate of reduction, we would hit a target of 5 by 2035. Some other points that emerged about the targets, both from the board as well from the discussions, is that stillbirths count, and that they should be considered as an outcome level target, and not only encompassed within the overall target. Tied to this is that we should really be looking at the stillbirth series goals for 2020. We also need to include stillbirths in the process indicators, such as around the perinatal mortality audits. The feeling also was that the time frame of 2035 seems to be too far away, and that we may need interim targets. The principle of equity rather than just safety and averages was also brought up, and that we may want to see some sub-national target setting so that we are not resting comfortably once we hit the target. Mapping targets to other initiatives such as Family Planning 2020 and A Promise Renewed, and defining what we mean by preventable mortality, and that it may be context specific and for a given country may change over time. So the overall principles that sort of emerged was also that we need to be ambitious and that we need to maintain the sense of urgency, which is something that the HIV community has been able to do. We really need to make the business case. A comment that emerged and that we thought was really relevant was that dead babies don't pay taxes. So really speaking to financing and the support that we need behind this is really important. The linkages to other initiatives, including family planning and PMTCT, and then the tracking of progress is really critical, and that we need indicators that we can track at the national level using HMIS, so that we might also consider scorecards as per a Promise Renewed. So there are analyses planned that are in the document that was distributed. There's some analyses around possible target. There were 10 scenarios that are already run, but there was not enough time to really discuss what they were. There are trend analyses, current best performers around mortality, and what would happen if other countries matched that current best practice. Also a better understanding of why the best performers are performing as well as they are, and equity analyses in terms of income quintiles. There's also some analyses planned around morbidity and impairment, and around life saves and cost analyses. The additional analyses suggested, again through the groups as well as through the PINs, were the association between family planning and newborn mortality, a sense of the distribution of the mortality burden across the maternal age groups, which is a variation of inequity analysis, the contribution of small for gestational age and low birth weight to mortality, as well as morbidity and stunting, coverage trends, also considering equity, and some bottleneck analyses for key high-impact interventions in some countries. So for next steps, to please use the website mentioned above to keep in touch. Thank you.